Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. What is India's China strategy? Is China serious about the border talks? Can India effectively challenge China while also depending on it? We ask because the two sides have been talking. The foreign ministers have met twice in 3 weeks. China has made demands, India has issued statements, but to what end? We'll discuss that tonight. In the US, Kamala Harris is surging in more polls. The Trump camp is sharpening its attacks. The childless cat lady comments are coming back to bite them. And Harris's hypocrisy on Gaza is on full display. In Pakistan, Imran Khan has a new plan/wish. He wants to be the Chancellor of the Oxford University. We'll explain. In Paris, the Olympic Games set to begin with a spectacular ceremony, sabotage attempts, and food shortages. In Africa, young people challenge their governments in more and more countries. After Kenya and Uganda, it's Nigeria that's bracing for protests. Is this the making of the African Spring? What is SearchGPT? Will it kill Google's search engine monopoly? How China is erasing Tibetan religion and language in a sustained campaign of cultural genocide. Why Sri Lanka's upcoming presidential election is a referendum on President Ranil Wickremesinghe. How the arrest of Mexico's most wanted drug lords is the stuff of a Hollywood thriller. And why do women deprioritize their careers? We'll discuss all of this and more. The headlines first. The European Union transfers over $1.5 billion raised from Russian assets to Ukraine. This is the first chunk of money earned from frozen Russian assets. The EU has frozen around $200 billion of Russian central bank assets. In the month of May, the bloc agreed to use this money to help arm Ukraine. Israel slams a UN rights expert for anti-Semitism. She had endorsed a social media post comparing the Israeli Prime Minister to Hitler. She is an independent expert appointed by the United Nations. In March, she had accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza. Record rains pound northern Japan, triggering floods and landslides. At least 2 people have been killed and thousands evacuated. Rivers burst their banks, washing away bridges and cars. Hundreds of households also have no power or running water. A UK lawmaker makes a renewed bid to legalize assisted dying. The proposal allows terminally ill people with 6 months or less to live to end their lives. Previous attempts to legalize assisted dying in Britain have been voted down. Earlier this year, a similar bill was introduced in the Scottish Parliament. And South Africa gets its first woman Chief Justice. President Cyril Ramaphosa appoints Mandisa Maya as the Chief Justice. Her term will start from September. Maya had missed out on the top job in 2022. Is China serious about resolving the border standoff? For 4 years, we've been asking this question. So why bring it up again tonight? Because of a meeting in Laos between S. Jaishankar and Wang Yi, the foreign ministers of India and China. Both are in Laos for an ASEAN meeting. ASEAN is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Neither India nor China is an ASEAN member. Both are attending as observers. This is their second meeting in a month. About 3 weeks ago, Jaishankar and Wang Yi had met in Astana on the sidelines of the SCO summit, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And now they've met in Laos. The focus was the same, resolving the border standoff. India is pushing China. Jaishankar reiterated his demands for China to fast-track negotiations and resolve the matter. In fact, here's what he said after the meeting, and I'm quoting, "must ensure full respect for the LAC." The LAC is the line of actual control. LAC, this is the de facto border between India and China. Earlier this month, the Indian leader used the exact same words. In Astana, S. Jaishankar had told Wang Yi, and I'm quoting again, that respecting the LAC is essential. Now, some would see this tough talk and back-to-back meetings as sign of progress, of both sides being eager to solve the dispute. India certainly is, but you can't say the same for China. Consider what the Chinese press is saying about the meeting. This is a story from CGTN, a Chinese state mouthpiece. The border standoff is barely mentioned. It's been buried in the copy. Let me quote Wang Yi on the border. This is what he said. China hopes the two sides will meet each other halfway, actively explore the right way to get along, and guide all sectors to build a positive understanding of each other. Now, this has been Beijing's position from the very beginning. It says the border should not dictate the relationship. What's more, China blames India for the border tensions.
India's strengthened military deployment in the China-Indian border area is not conducive to the efforts made by China and India to ease the border situation, nor is it conducive to the maintenance of peace and tranquility in the China-Indian border area. We believe that such moves taken by the Indian side are not conducive to peace and tranquility.
So this is China's message to India: set aside the border issue and focus on buying more Chinese goods. Can India say no? Well, not really. Despite the push for self-reliance, India continues to rely on Chinese goods. It hasn't been able to find alternatives. So border standoff or not, China remains India's largest trading partner. Look at the numbers from the last financial year. Chinese goods worth more than $100 billion poured into India, and this may continue for the foreseeable future. Last week, India's chief economic advisor made a suggestion. He said India could benefit from more Chinese investment. India could benefit from more Chinese investment, foreign direct investment from China. India's finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman backed this suggestion, as do Indian businesses. They remain deeply dependent on China, so much so that they've been making appeals to New Delhi to give more visas for Chinese workers. Needless to say, China sees all of this and tries to exploit this vulnerability.
China hopes that India will fully understand the mutually beneficial nature of China-India economic and trade cooperation and provide a fair, just, transparent, and non-discriminatory business environment for Chinese companies to invest and operate in India.
You heard that. India should allow more Chinese investment. That's what they're saying. Beijing is also pushing for direct flights to India. They've been asking for this for a while now. Direct flights were banned in 2020 during the pandemic and never resumed since then. Because of the border standoff, India refused to reopen its skies to Chinese planes. So there are no direct flights between the two countries. China has been asking India to reverse this policy. Both Chinese diplomats and Chinese airlines have been making appeals behind closed doors, and India has been turning them down. Yesterday, China went public with the demand. The Chinese mission in New Delhi released a statement. It said, and I'm quoting, sharing a video clip made by Chinese media based on their research and data sources. They cannot help but ask, why is India distancing itself from China? Why is India distancing itself from China? Why indeed? Such an innocent question. It came along with a video. Instead of resorting to this drama, maybe the Chinese should withdraw troops. India's moves were a reaction to the PLA's unprovoked attacks in Ladakh. That's when India banned flights and placed restrictions on Chinese FDI. Chinese investments were subjected to greater scrutiny, and Chinese apps were banned, more than 500 of them, including big names like TikTok. They do not operate in India anymore. These moves irked Beijing, but could not force it to course correct. And India acknowledges this need to address the China challenge more effectively.
चीन के बारे में हम तो हमारी फोकस तो होगी कि सीमा में जो स्थिति जो है उसमें अभी भी कुछ इश्यूज बाकी बचे हुए हैं तो उसको कैसे निपटाया जाए.
He said that right after taking office for the third term. Jaishankar has spoken with Wang Yi twice in a month. You could say that's better than no engagement, but the fact is that India's China strategy needs a fresh perspective, both political and economic. India has to find an effective leverage against China. Momentum is a strange thing. If you have it, there is nothing better. It's almost like being invincible. But if you don't have it, it is the worst feeling. Just ask Donald Trump. After the debate and assassination bid, he was flying high last week. Momentum was on his side. But after Joe Biden's exit, things have changed. Kamala Harris now has the momentum. More people are lining up to endorse her. The latest are the Obamas.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness.
Celebrities are also jumping in. Basketball star Stephen Curry has endorsed Kamala Harris. He's currently in Paris for the Olympics. So has Hollywood actor George Clooney. Remember, Clooney is a key Democratic donor. His criticism laid the ground for Joe Biden's exit. Some billionaires are also part of this list, like Reed Hastings, co-founder of Netflix, Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, and Melinda Gates. It looks like the Democratic base is all fired up. And how is Trump responding to this? Well, he seems a bit flustered. All of a sudden, Trump is the old candidate in the fray. Some polls also show him trailing Harris. So Trump is now thinking about cancelling the debates. You see, Biden and Trump had agreed to 2 debates. The first one is over. The second one is slated for September 10th. But the Trump campaign is now putting it on hold. They say, let the Democrats elect their nominee first. Then we'll set the dates. You can see why this looks bad. Which is why Kamala Harris has latched onto it. She's accused Trump of running away from a fight.
I'm ready to debate Donald Trump. I have agreed to the previously agreed upon September 10th debate. He agreed to that previously. Now it appears he's backpedaling. But I'm ready. And I think the voters deserve to see the split screen that exists in this race on a debate stage.
Strange thing to say, though, considering her boss, Joe Biden, also quit. But that's what momentum is all about. You can get away with anything, it seems. Plus, the Republicans are still shaping their strategy. They had prepared for Joe Biden, but Harris came out of syllabus. So right now, their strategy is a bit all over the place, a mix of racism, misogyny, and policy issues. Trump's running mate is caught in the middle of this. An old video of his is going viral. It shows J.D. Vance calling Harris a miserable, childless cat lady. The blowback is huge. Women voters are rallying for Kamala Harris. Even Taylor Swift fans are jumping in. Some quick context here. Taylor Swift also does not have a child, but she does have 3 cats. So the Swifties, as fans call themselves, the Swifties are out for vengeance. I guess it's now up to J.D. Vance. If he apologizes, he hands a victory to Kamala Harris. If he doesn't, he adds to the anger. Talk about a turn of events. 2 weeks back, J.D. Vance could do no wrong. He was billed as the future of Donald Trump's movement. But now he's looking like a liability. Again, thank momentum. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is eyeing new voters. The older Democrats were always going to vote for her, but the younger ones were doubtful. They opposed Joe Biden's policy on Gaza. Plus, the age gap put them off. So Harris has unveiled a 2-pronged strategy. First is embracing Gen Z culture. On Thursday, she joined social media platform TikTok. It's their go-to app, the go-to app for young Americans. Her campaign is also embracing memes and reels. Take a look at these.
If I do debate President Trump, I'm sure it'll be a competitive face-off where either one of us could end up on top.
Really?
No, I'd wipe the floor with him.
Well, what we really need is a feminine nominee. A what? A feminine nominee.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context.
It seems to be working. Biden's campaign already had a TikTok account. It had some 440,000 followers. After Sunday, Harris's campaign took over that account. 440,000. Guess how many followers it has now? 1.9 million. That's more than tripled in 5 days. So young Americans are mobilizing for Harris, which brings us to the second part of her strategy, a sharper tone on Gaza. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met Kamala Harris. Afterwards, she had some tough words for Israel.
Not look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent. I also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern
about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians. And I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there.
How convenient. Kamala Harris is not some helpless politician. She is the United States Vice President. She and Biden supported Netanyahu's war. She and Biden kept sending weapons to Israel. And as a result, more than 38,000 Palestinians are dead. So Harris is complicit in the war. She cannot distance herself now. We found this meme that sums it up best. It shows an airplane for each US president. Obama's plane says forward. Trump's plane says make America great again. Biden's plane says yes we can. And Harris's plane says Brad. But all these aircraft are doing the same thing, dropping bombs and flying away. So whoever wins in November, expect more of the same.
What we have to do with
Around a dozen Democrats have asked Biden to step down. This includes Democratic congressmen, senators, high-profile donors, and even Hollywood actor George Clooney. It was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, the former president of the United States of America. As many as 8 shots were fired. 1 bullet grazed Donald Trump.
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
In less than 24 hours, Kamala Harris has raised millions of dollars for her campaign. What she needs now is a party nomination. Kamala Harris is gaining ground. A new poll is out. It shows Harris in the lead over Trump. Let's turn to Pakistan now, where Imran Khan is running for election. Not the kind you think. He's still barred from doing that. I'm talking about elections to choose Oxford University's Chancellor. I know this year keeps getting more absurd, but let me explain. First of all, why Oxford? Well, Imran Khan studied economics there. He got a degree from Keble College. Even captained their cricket team. So I'm sure Oxford is very close to his heart, plus he's got experience. Imran Khan was Chancellor of Bradford University from 2005 to 2014. It's another university in England. But is he up for this job at Oxford? Well, the Chancellor does not do much. He or she is the ceremonial head of the university. They don't even have to live in Oxford all the time, which brings us to the most important question. Can he actually win it? Around 250,000 people will be voting for the next Chancellor. 250,000. Most of them former students. They don't have to come to the university. They can cast their vote online. But will they vote for Imran Khan? Looks highly unlikely. Reports say Imran Khan's chances are very low. He faces competition from some big names, including 2 former British Prime Ministers, Tony Blair and Boris Johnson. I must say, great company. One of them partied while millions lived in lockdown. The other bombed Iraq in an illegal war. It tells a lot about where Oxford is. And also makes you wonder, why is Imran Khan doing it at all? His advisors say that there is public demand for him to run. But frankly, it's a PR stunt. Imran Khan has largely been forgotten by the West. At first, he was the persecuted messiah. But now he's just a footnote. One of the many leaders defeated by Pakistan's army. Enter Oxford. It's one of the most famous universities in the world. Its chancellor will have a big megaphone. When they speak, people listen, which is probably why Imran Khan wants to run. But let's face it, the plan would never work out. Just look at the Oxford website. One of the FAQs is, do you need to live in Oxford to carry out the role? Now look at the answer. No, but you will need to be able to come to Oxford for certain events throughout the year. That could be a problem because Imran Khan is in jail right now. He's accused in more than 150 criminal cases. Some of them involve corruption. Some accuse him of terrorism. Others link him to leaked state secrets. If he's freed in one case, the army arrests him in another case. So simply put, Imran Khan is never leaving that jail, not unless he cuts a deal with the Pakistani army. And what are the chances of that? Again, very low. Islamabad is turning the screws on Imran Khan's party. They're trying to ban it. For what? So-called anti-state actions. On Monday, police officers raided the party headquarters. It's seen as a precursor to the ban.
We have not committed an offense to be arrested for anything. But anyway, every single person has been packed up and taken, and without any charge, they are kept in isolation. And they don't even, the family members don't know where they are.
So Imran Khan is feeling the heat, which is why he's focusing on Oxford University. It's honestly a desperate move. Imran Khan may have studied in England, but as Prime Minister, he wasn't a fan of Western education, or so he said. His pet project was the Al-Qadir University, a university for, by and of Pakistan. In fact, he blamed English medium education for Pakistan's class divisions.
जो साहिब इक़्तिदार थे, जिन्होंने फैसले करने थे, उनके बच्चे उन इंस्टीट्यूशंस में पढ़ रहे थे जिधर इंग्लिश मीडियम एजुकेशन था, और इंग्लिश मीडियम एजुकेशन के लिए सारी नौकरियां थी, उनके लिए सोसाइटी में प्रिविलेजेस थी, वो एक स्टेटस सिंबल बन चुका था। क्लास जो हमारी क्लास डिविजन्स बन गई, वो सिर्फ ये कि इंग्लिश मीडियम में कौन है।
That was in 2021. Look at how things have changed since. Now Imran Khan wants to head the poster boy of English education, Oxford. Even the university must be worried because Imran Khan doesn't really fit their image. He supports conservative Islam. He openly advocated for the Taliban. He defended Pakistan's cruel blasphemy laws. And he's neck deep in corruption cases. Not exactly chancellor material. The countdown is on. All eyes are on Paris. It's a day the city's been waiting for, the day of the Olympics. The games officially open today. They will continue till the 11th of August. And France is leaving no stone unturned. After all, it's the first time that they're hosting the games in a century. Paris last hosted the Olympics in 1924, so it's been exactly 100 years. In 2 hours from now, the opening ceremony will kick off and it will be a spectacle. For the first time in the history of the Olympics, it's not happening in a stadium. Instead, the opening ceremony will be held along the River Seine. France is calling it the biggest open-air show ever. And they aren't exaggerating. More than 8,000 athletes will glide down the river almost like a sporting armada. There will be light shows, dancers, acrobats, floating pianos, helicopters, and even a few submarines. Watching them from the banks will be 300,000 people, along with 100 heads of state and other important leaders. The boats will travel for 6 kilometers. They will arrive opposite the Eiffel Tower. The Olympic cauldron will be lit, and French President Emmanuel Macron will declare the games open. Like I said, a theatrical spectacle. That's what France wants. But it's not an easy feat to pull off. It's taken Paris 2 years, thousands of soldiers and utmost secrecy to chart out this plan. During the ceremony, 45,000 police officers will patrol the streets. Joining them will be 10,000 soldiers and 20,000 private security guards. There's a no-fly zone over the capital. Central Paris is now a fortress. The banks of the Seine are sealed. There are metal barriers everywhere. You can't stroll along the river. Only residents and those with hotel bookings can access this area. Snipers will be present on every high point. That's hundreds of buildings along the route. They will be on the lookout for any threats. Navy divers will be present in the waters. Every boat will be screened. And the army will be in charge of anti-drone operations. So the French have left nothing to chance. It's a massive security exercise, and you can understand why. An open-air ceremony may be a grand spectacle, but there's a reason why countries haven't done it yet. It comes at a huge cost. It's given France cold sweats ever since it was announced. There are security hiccups, multiple risks, and looming terror threats. So, can Paris truly secure the Games? Look at what happened today. France has 4 main high-speed railway lines. 4. They connect Paris to the rest of the country. All 4 of them were attacked today. 3 were disrupted, the 4th one was not. These attacks were coordinated. They derailed the entire railway system. Eyewitnesses say they saw arsonists damaging signal boxes and tracks. France has called it an act of sabotage.
Our network of high-speed lines has been the target of operations of criminal sabotage throughout the night, at around 4 o'clock in the morning. These high-speed lines have been impacted at different levels.
The timing couldn't have been worse. 800,000 passengers were stranded. The damage was quite heavy. The operations haven't been completely restored yet, and it's affecting other trains in Europe. 1 out of every 4 Eurostar trains have been cancelled. It even forced UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer to change his travel plans to get to the Olympics.
I'm not particularly afraid, but it's true that it's still quite worrying. It's very worrying that this happens on the major train lines. I hope nothing happens in Paris during the opening of the Olympics that worries me, actually.
There was also a bomb threat at a Franco-Swiss airport. It was briefly evacuated, the airport, but nothing happened. Having said that, incidents like this, just ahead of the Olympics, are a cause of concern, although France insists that there's nothing to worry about, and the Olympic Association says it trusts Paris.
No, I don't have concern. We have full confidence in the French authorities. All the measures are being taken, and the French authorities are assisted by 180 other intelligence services around the world, and not only by information. Some of them are even deploying their human resources, and so we have good reasons to have full confidence.
Full confidence, he says, after an act of sabotage. Also, there's food shortages. Athletes in the Olympic Village are complaining about it. They say there isn't enough food. Eggs are being rationed. Meat is running out. Of course, Paris has denied it. It says there's a high demand for meals, so they'll ramp up production. They must do it fast because a total of 13 million meals will be served during the Olympics. So while Paris has had some misses, there have also been a few hits. This is an event of many firsts. For the first time, men and women will have equal representation at the Games. 5,250 male athletes will compete, along with 5,250 female athletes. So complete gender parity. It's a first for the Olympics. Plus, Paris promises to be the greenest Olympics in history. The athletes' village has no air conditioning. 60% of the food is vegetarian, and existing infrastructure is being used. So Paris is really aiming for that green gold. They may have had a few hiccups on the way, but we do hope that they have a good run ahead. Yesterday, we told you about the AI hype, how investors fear that it could all be just a bubble. Looks like they heard us because OpenAI has launched a new product. It's called SearchGPT. The name does give it away. It's basically a search engine, but with artificial intelligence. SearchGPT will not just give you links, it will curate answers for you. Does that mean that Google's run is over? The company dominates the global search market with a 91% market share. Can this search engine kill Google's monopoly? Our next report tells you.
OpenAI has thrown its hat into the search engine ring. It's launched SearchGPT. You heard that right. The same minds that brought you ChatGPT, the AI that can pen your love letters and even draft your grocery list, now wants to find things for you on the internet. Now, SearchGPT is an AI-powered search engine. It has access to real-time information, much like Google search. So what sets it apart? It's the way it answers queries. When you ask Google a question, it comes with a host of links. You can go through them and come up with your own answer. But SearchGPT aims to make it easier for you, so it will organize the web for you. Here's an example. Imagine you ask it about music festivals. You won't just get a list, but it will be like a curated guide with summaries. It's almost like your own librarian got a PhD in curation with a minor in telepathy. Here's another example. It's from the OpenAI demo. Say you want to plant tomatoes. SearchGPT will not tell you how to plant them. Instead, it will give you a masterclass. It will talk about optimal planting times, what different varieties are available. It almost sounds like an enthusiastic botanist. At least it's not asking you to sing for plants. Well, not yet. Among the shiny new features is something which has been dubbed visual answers. OpenAI has been coy about the specifics, but we can imagine it's likely to be a pictorial guide to the process. For now, SearchGPT is just a prototype. It's accessible to only 10,000 select test users. Consider it almost like an exclusive club. Instead of bouncers, you have OpenAI promising there's more to come. But what does it mean for Google? It's the undisputed king of search engines, and for years, no one has come close. But this one, if it works out, could be a Google killer. And it feels like Google anticipated this. Earlier this year, it raced to integrate AI features into its search engine. This also pits OpenAI against Perplexity, which calls itself an AI answer engine. Now, ever since artificial intelligence took over the world, the grand vision has been simple: to integrate AI into search engines. That way, you can create a meta search experience. You have a digital assistant that can not only chat with you, but also give you information in real time. Imagine Batman's Alfred with superintelligence. But while Google may feel threatened, for now it has nothing to worry about. OpenAI has just released a prototype. We'll need a full rollout to understand how the actual product works. Because right now, it can go either way. It can either revolutionize the way we search on the internet, or it can become a footnote in the annals of tech history. Either way, one thing is certain: the world of search will never be quite the same again.
Now let's turn our attention to Africa. A wave of protests is spreading throughout the continent. It began in Kenya with protests against their budget, or the finance bill as they call it. Then they spread across the border to neighboring Uganda, and now Nigeria is gearing up to become the third protest hotspot. Young Nigerians are preparing to march against the government. They plan to hold peaceful protests next week on the 1st of August. And this has scared the Nigerian establishment. The country's president, Bola Tinubu, issued a warning on Monday. He said the protests were the work of some sinister people, and he asked Nigerians to not join. The next day, Nigeria's police chief joined the chorus. He said the protests were ill-advised and that the police would not sit back and watch. 2 days later, the Nigerian military chimed in. A military spokesperson said the protests may lead to anarchy. He said that the army would not allow Nigeria to spiral out of control. You can see how rattled the authorities are. Every arm of the government is trying to stop the protests, and not just with threats. On Tuesday, Nigeria doubled its minimum wage to try and diffuse public anger.
Only today, the National Assembly has expeditiously passed the new national minimum wage. You can see how the president is working. It was transmitted only yesterday. Today it has been passed. A lot of other interventions that the president has also put in place are also going to be looked at expeditiously in the interest of Nigeria. So there's no need for strike. The young people out there should listen to the president and allow the president more time to see to the realization of all the goodies he has for them.
He made that appeal to the quote-unquote young people out there because they are the ones who are organizing the protests. Just like in Kenya and Uganda, across Africa, it is the young people, members of Gen Z, who are organizing the demonstrations. Gen Z is planning the protests using social media. Nigeria's Gen Z are mobilizing under a social media hashtag #EndBadGovernance. The protests in Kenya were also organized under a hashtag. It was #RejectFinanceBill 2024. That's what they call their budget. And this was when the protests had started. Now it has changed to #RutoMustGo. It reflects the changing demands of the Kenyan protesters. Protests also broke out in Uganda this Tuesday. They were organized using the hashtag March to Parliament. So it's a similar story in all these countries. Young people are fed up. They're also tech savvy, so they're using social media to come together and challenge the entrenched powers that be. The protests are also being broadcast in real time on social media on platforms like X and TikTok. The world can see live footage from the ground, footage of police brutality or military heavy-handedness whenever it occurs. The Gen Z protesters are sharing this footage, which leads to more public anger and therefore more protests. It shows what a powerful tool social media can be and how it can put governments on the back foot. However, this is not the first time that something like this has happened. Protests have been organized on social media before. They've inspired similar demonstrations in other countries and even brought governments to their knees. All of this happened in 2011 and 2012 in Africa itself and parts of West Asia. It was dubbed the Arab Spring. The protests originated in Tunisia and spread like wildfire across North Africa and West Asia. Those protests were organized on Facebook and X, or Twitter as it was called back then. Well, Gen Z won't be caught dead using Facebook, but they're expressing their anger on TikTok and X, and this anger has already spread across 3 African countries. More could follow, and the reaction in Nigeria proves one thing: an angry and vocal youth is every government's worst nightmare. Our next story is from Tibet, the Himalayan nation that China annexed back in the 1950s. Tibet is now a so-called autonomous region of China. That name sounds almost conciliatory. The Tibet Autonomous Region, or the Xizang Autonomous Region as Beijing calls it. And this makes it seem that the people of Tibet are largely left alone, autonomous, free to do as they please and live as they wish. Nothing could be further from the truth. Here's one of the latest reports from Tibet. It says China is forcing ordinary Tibetans to shed the symbols of their religion, Tibetan Buddhism. Some of you may have met people from Tibet, and you might recall one of their most famous symbols, the multicolored prayer flags. These flags are visible all over Tibetan settlements. They are hung up outside because it is believed that the wind spreads the prayers and blesses everything that it touches. But now it seems that Beijing wants to stifle these blessings because Tibetans have been ordered to take the prayer flags down. And that's not all. Many Tibetans have a chimney-like structure outside their house where they light incense to make offerings. But China wants them to demolish these holy structures. In the past, China has mostly targeted religious establishments, not individuals. But now even an ordinary Tibetan person won't be spared. And Beijing's assault on the freedom of religion does not end there. They're also going after Tibetan Buddhists digitally. China is banning them from holding online prayer sessions. It is going after people who try and host these sessions. Authorities are reportedly summoning prayer organizers for quote-unquote interrogations. And that's just one part of the oppression. So far, we've spoken about religion. Beijing is also going after Tibetan culture, the unique Tibetan identity. It starts with their language. The Tibetan government in exile has put out this report accusing China of banning Tibetan language broadcasts. Videos in various Tibetan languages are getting blocked, and live streaming in those languages is being restricted. And that's not even the worst part. Look at this report. It says that Beijing is systematically trying to cynicize the Tibetan people by forcing their children to give up the language. The report cites China's national college entrance exam. More than 200 Tibetan students took this test. These were students who studied core subjects in the Tibetan language. 200 of them took the test, only 7 or 8 passed the exam. Tibetans believe that the students were failed on purpose in an effort to discourage the use of their own language. It's even worse for younger children. China is closing Tibetan schools on spurious grounds and then forcing young Tibetan children to go to boarding schools run by the Chinese government. They've been described as colonial-style boarding schools. The children are forced to study in Mandarin and kept away from their families, so they can't even learn Tibetan after school. As a result, the children are forgetting their mother tongue. And many older Tibetans are worried. that their children will completely be Sinicized and that their culture will be gradually erased. All the reports paint a grim picture of how China is snuffing out the Tibetan identity, their religious practices curtailed, their language silenced, and their children indoctrinated. There's a term for this phenomenon, ethnocide, meaning cultural genocide. It's happening to the Tibetans right now. The world needs to do something about it before the entire region truly becomes the Chinese Xizang and Tibet is lost to history. It's election time in Sri Lanka. The country will vote for its next president in September and the stakes could not be higher. You may remember what happened in 2022. Massive public protests, a president on the run and a government on its knees. All of it was triggered by a debt crisis. Sri Lanka did not have money to repay its loans, so people hit the streets. And since then, a lot has changed. New reforms, new repayment deals, and new political alliances. So the upcoming vote is sort of like a referendum, mainly on this man's rule, Ranil Wickremesinghe. He took over as president in 2022. Fun fact, he wasn't elected by the people of Sri Lanka. As the violence spread, then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled. So the parliament had to choose a new one. Very few would have bet on Wickremesinghe. His party had just one seat in parliament, and that one seat being his own. But the Rajapaksa supported his candidacy, and that's how Ranil Wickremesinghe became president. The question is, can he win again? He's already filed his nomination with the Election Commission. He also has a good track record. When he took charge, inflation was 70%. It's now down to 1.7%. Foreign reserves have reached $5.4 billion, which is a 3.5-year high. Plus, he has negotiated a repayment deal with India, China and Japan. The deadlines have been pushed back by 4 years. Colombo also stands to save $5 billion. So all in all, a good deal. If you compare this to 2022, it's great news. Wickremesinghe has brought relative stability to Sri Lanka. And yet his victory may not be guaranteed. Let's meet the main challengers. First is Sajith Premadasa. He leads the SJB party. He is also the son of a former president. Wickremesinghe is known as a pro-market leader, but Premadasa is a centrist. He likes state intervention when necessary. And what is he promising? Mainly some tweaks to Sri Lanka's IMF program. You see, the IMF had extended $2.9 billion to Colombo, but that package came with targets, like raising taxes and lowering subsidies. Premadasa says he will change those targets. The second candidate is Anura Dissanayake. He leads the Marxist JVP party. Right now, they have just 3 seats in the parliament, but experts are bullish on him. The protests of 2022 have increased his party's popularity. Recent polls show him leading Wickremesinghe and Premadasa. But why is that? If the economy has stabilized, why isn't Wickremesinghe winning? Because of 2 factors. Number 1, his political baggage. Most Sri Lankans blame the Rajapaksas for the crisis, and who appointed Wickremesinghe? The same Rajapaksas. So the resentment of 2022 may come back to haunt him. Factor number 2 is the fallout of his reforms. Thanks to Wickremesinghe, Sri Lanka's fundamentals look stable now, but that stability has come at a cost. In 2023, his government increased income tax to 36%. This year, he slapped a new tax on fuel and mobile phones. How much? Around 18% tax. Also, subsidies on electricity have been slashed. Now, such austerity measures are unavoidable. You need them to secure IMF help. But they also affect ordinary Sri Lankans. Almost 26% of the country lives in poverty now. So this election is basically a referendum on Wickremesinghe. Will people approve of his economic reforms, or will they declare it too harsh? That is the question that will define this vote. India too will be watching very closely. New Delhi has extended financial help to Colombo. It has also lobbied for Sri Lanka at the IMF. So India will be hoping for a couple of things. First, stability and peace, not a repeat of what happened in 2022, no matter who wins or loses. And second, a long-term realignment. Chinese loans were a major reason for Sri Lanka's debt crisis, yet Colombo is striking more deals with China. New Delhi won't be happy with that. Ties with Wickremesinghe had turned frosty last year. In fact, his trip to India was delayed multiple times. So like I said, this is a high-stakes election for Sri Lanka, for India and for the neighbourhood. Packed with revenge, betrayal, twists and turns, our next story tonight has the makings of a Hollywood movie. You may have heard of Joaquin Guzman, better known as El Chapo, or the Godfather. He was the world's biggest drug lord. He is currently serving a life sentence in a US prison, but his business, Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, is still booming and irking the US. So now US federal agents have made 2 new arrests. They have nabbed El Chapo's partner, El Mayo, or Ismael Zambada, and El Chapo's son, Joaquin Guzman Lopez. For the underworld, this is no mean feat, and it has got the rest of the world wondering, are the movie rights available? We'll tell you why.
Vengeance is sweet, but today the US may say it's euphoric, even addictive, because US federal agents have finally nabbed El Mayo. He has been arrested in Texas. That's no sauce maker, by the way. He's one of the world's most powerful drug lords. His real name is Ismael Zambada, and he's the leader of Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. El Mayo founded the criminal organization with El Chapo. You may have heard of this name before. El Chapo, or Joaquin Guzman, is a drug kingpin. He was referred to as the Godfather, the biggest drug lord of all time. He's currently jailed in the US, but his son, Joaquin Guzman Lopez, is still in the business. And he has been arrested as well, along with El Mayo. How did this happen? You may want to sit down for this, because the tale of this arrest has the makings of a Hollywood movie. Here's what happened. Zambada was lured onto a private plane in Mexico. He thought the plane would fly further south, so he could inspect clandestine airfields. Just another weekday for him, probably. Instead, the plane flew north. It landed in Texas, where federal agents were waiting for the drug lord. And you know what happens next, but do you know who got Zambada on the plane in the first place? Lopez. Yes, the same Joaquin Guzman Lopez, son of El Chapo, Zambada's partner in crime. Lopez tricked Zambada, got him on the plane, and as soon as it landed in Texas, Lopez surrendered to the US authorities. But he wasn't the only one who was arrested. So was Zambada. But why did Lopez betray Zambada? Take a guess. It'll be easier to do so if you're familiar with Hindi cinema. It was because of revenge. Lopez blamed Zambada for the capture of his father. As entertaining as all this sounds, this was a months-long operation by US federal agents, and it was a huge success. This is no mean feat in the underworld. After all, the kingpin has evaded authorities for years now. The Sinaloa cartel traffics drugs to more than 50 countries around the globe, and one of their favorite targets is the US. The Sinaloa cartel is the biggest supplier of drugs to the US. Fentanyl is the most widely sold drug. It's even more powerful than heroin, and it has been blamed for the US opioid crisis. It's the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45, so the US has led one operation after another to crush the cartel. In February, they charged Zambada for drug trafficking, murder, kidnapping, money laundering, and organized crime. It's a long list. They were even offering a reward of $15 million for Zambada's capture. Now they've finally done it. And they nabbed a +1 as well. Perhaps the US made Lopez an offer he couldn't refuse, if you know what we mean. But only time will tell what becomes of them, because few can leave the gun and take the cannoli.
Opportunity cost. Economists love this term. Because it applies to most things in life. Opportunity cost means the potential options or benefits that you miss out on when you take up an opportunity. It refers to the fact that everything in life comes at a price because our resources are limited, our time, attention, money, energy, all of them are finite. But the things we want to do are infinite. So we must miss out on some things. In other words, we have to compromise, and this is quite normal. Compromise is baked into all our choices, but more so when it comes to relationships. It is said that relationships are all about compromise, which seems to be true for both men and women. But it's not the same. Who does it more, men or women? It can be a difficult and very broad question to answer, but not when it comes to work, because here the research is quite clear. Working women compromise more. Shocker, we know. Women often put their own career on the back seat and enable their partner to advance. Not all, but most. For 1 in every 4 women, the partner's career takes precedence, because again, it is pure economics. Let's say you have to bet on a person. On the one hand, you have a working man whose career is only expected to get stronger. On the other hand, you have a working woman who is pretty much swimming against the tide thanks to the job market and the society we live in. She will make 77 cents for every dollar that the man makes, and she will be promoted lesser than her male counterparts, despite outperforming them. When she becomes a mother, it will only go downhill. She will lose out on 60% of her income in the first 10 years after childbirth. She will also be paid lesser than men and childless women. She will be at a much higher risk of losing her job, and we are not making up any of this. Research proves every single point here. But given that this is based on global averages, let's say that she is an anomaly, and that she manages to fight all this data. She claws her way up, and she has a successful career. Even then, pick any industry, pick any country, and she will have fewer chances of reaching a leadership role. Only 31% leadership roles are held by women across the world. These are terrible odds. So who will you bet on? Most likely the man. So when times get tough, for many women, their own careers are the opportunity cost. It is not an emotional choice. It is a safe, logical, and obvious bet. And it's not just about the money. Even when women are the primary earners, even when they earn more money than their partners, 20% still prioritize their partner's career. So clearly, there is more to this story. According to one study, even if men and women earn similar amounts, they still follow traditional gender roles. For men, this means paid work and leisure. For women, it is paid work and unpaid work, like chores and childcare. So even if women do not deprioritize their careers, household responsibilities tend to fall on them, and they end up juggling too many balls. So what is the solution? Well, if you're a man, start with not being angry at the data. This is the world we live in. Accept it. And we know #NotAllMen and so on. If you are the anomaly, great, we are lucky to have you. But if you're part of the problem, about time you notice the pattern and break it. And if you're a woman, we have a very difficult task for you, more like a request. Stop this so-called tyranny of niceness. Women are taught from infancy to be agreeable, to be accommodating. But to what extent and for how long? Call it TGIF advice. Experts have a solution for you. If you're juggling too many responsibilities, think of each task as a ball, either made of plastic or glass. You can afford to drop the plastic ball, it won't break, but the glass ball will break, and it will be difficult to repair, if not impossible. So here is the trick. Distinguish which ball is plastic and which is glass. If your career is a plastic ball, that is okay. It may take a back seat, that is a personal preference. But if it is made of glass, fight to protect it. You are the one steering this wheel, so your career gets to call shotgun. And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. Heavy rainfall submerges vehicles as Typhoon Gemi lashes China. A park fire sweeps through California, burning down 125,000 acres in less than 48 hours. And the San Diego Comic Con returns after 3 years of pandemic and Hollywood strikes. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1999, the Kargil War came to an end. It was the last war that India fought with Pakistan. It began when Pakistan tried to capture Indian military posts. New Delhi hit back, taking control of all the territories. The war went on for 2 months, but in the end, India emerged victorious. Today, the country marked 25 years of that victory, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting the Kargil War Memorial in Dras. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for our future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Imran, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C.